Alright, I'm standing here at the three-headed shaper right here from Woodtech, and so what this machine does is it creates the joinery necessary to make a raised panel or just flat panel door. There are 3 stations set up on this three-headed shaper, and all 3 are going to do something different. When we're talking about our door pieces, we have got stiles and we have got rails. The stiles are the vertical pieces, the rails are the horizontal pieces. Alright, and so I've got it written on here what each section will do. This saw will not turn on if any of these emergency stops are pushed in. So before you start, make sure all of the emergency stops are pulled out and make sure that this blast gate is open. Additionally, we're only going to go 1 station at a time. If you're working in a group or if you're working with a couple people and there's someone at this station, you're not going to be able to run this station as well. When we're creating our doors, we got to keep in mind a few things. Our stiles and rails are going to be oriented just like you see here. The stiles go on the outside, the rails go on the inside. Okay, and I strongly recommend, in fact I require you to write on your door. In fact, I want to require you to write down what each part is, because by the time we get over here, there's very few places to set your stuff down and we might forget what goes where. Okay? So please label your doors just like I have, and just do it on one side. It will make your life easier later. Additionally, we're going to have the panel piece as well. So if you're looking at this 1/4 inch piece of plywood right here, I've got the right species that I'm using for my end table, and I need to pay attention to the wood grain direction, okay? As our doors are being created, we want the wood grain to be parallel to the stiles on our doors, meaning the wood grain is going up and down vertically on our door as it's going to be sitting in our cabinet. If it's that way, it's going to look weird and wrong. Additionally, if you look at this piece right here, it kind of looks like, in my opinion, a flame, right? This is what Ken Janish taught me. We always put the flames as if they're actually on fire. Flame tips up, however you want to think about it. If we have it this way where it's kind of making a U looking right here, that kind of looks odd, and that's not what the professionals do, and so that's not what we are going to do. Our first exciting station that we're going to be is to be cutting out our rail ends only. Okay, a couple things. We've got the dust collection on, and we've got the blast gate open as well. Okay, I'm going to take my rails and I'm going to put my stiles off to the side, but I'm not going to lose track of them because I'm going to need them soon here. Okay, I'm going to start on my door rails, and I'm going to be concerned with the ends right here. Okay, what they're going to cut is a profile that looks something kind of like this. All right, in fact, exactly like this. I'm going to use what we call a coping sled for this operation, and for this it's really important to set up. So please, Mr. Editing Team, please zoom in here. I've got my jig, my coping sled rather, tied up against this fence right here. I'm going to take my door rail with the letters up and push that against the fence and this coping sled fence right here. Okay? Now I'm going to tighten that down on the side with the letters. Okay? This should act as one piece now. Okay? You can shake this and the thing is not going to come off. Your door rail piece is not going to come off this coping sled. If it does, please come and find me immediately. Do not run this with a loose piece in here. Underneath this little guard, riving nut or feather board right here is a very sharp shaper head that will cut you very deep and fast, so keep your hands out of it. We're going to hold the handles on the coping sled and just slide it along the fence from left to right like this. All right, so you saw me put that through twice actually right there. And the reason why I did that is so that I can get a square line right here. If there's any kind of up and downs or waves along this line right here, what it means is that as you were cutting, the board came away from the fence a little bit. Not the end of the world. Just run through a second time like you saw I do. Now here's the important thing. We wrote our door rail indication right here, and now I'm going to keep that side up to do my other end of my door rail. Okay, if I accidentally do each face, or if I flip this wrong, it's not going to work. That's why I suggested writing the door rail, name of the part, only on one side to help you remember what it is. Okay? So here it is the second time. Tight to the fence, tight to my coping sled, tight down, here we go. Here it is again. Here goes my second one. So now what I need to do is I need to mill the channel that is going to actually hold in our door panel. And that's going to be accomplished at this station right here. I am going to put all of my pieces through here along one edge using this jig that you see right here. It says it on here, gave it all door pieces, rails and stiles, and we're going to put the good side down. How do we know what the good side is? Well, the good side is going to be the side that it did not write on. Okay, and so if you followed along well here, you've got your part names on one side, and then on the other side, you've got nothing. Okay, so that good side, that side with nothing written on them, is going to be pointed down. The words are going to be pointed up. Hopefully that is easy enough for us to do. Okay? Set those up here. I'm going to use this jig. It kind of operates like a push stick on a table saw. I'm going to use this jig to keep my hands away from the sharp spinning blade, but also to hold the wood tight against the fence and drive it through the saw head. Looks like this. this is what we're after here. We're just about done at this three-headed shaper at this point if we're doing a flat panel. If we are doing a raised panel, I want you to come and find me because that is a little bit different method. We're actually going to use this thing a lot differently, but if you are in that camp, I want you to come find me. Otherwise, we are ready to go after this stage right here. Kind of looks cool if you ask me. Alright, getting the panel to fit inside your stiles and rails is going to be a little challenging because I just give you this big slice, right? And I tell you to share it with a couple people around you. Okay, it's going to take some fine tuning. Okay, but as you can see, this joint is a very, very strong and powerful joint. Alright, how it fits together like that is pretty darn cool. So we don't need a lot of glue, but we do got to know that it fits together. And boy, does it ever fit together well. Okay? So I just tried mine out. It took a couple different cuts to sneak up on the size that this is. Now if you cut this too small and it doesn't fit, alright, we're going to have to start over and use another piece from that sheet that you grabbed. Okay, this stuff is expensive. Take your time. Measure twice, cut once. Alright, but as you start to put this together like a puzzle, you should start to see how this plywood is going to fit inside this channel all the way around this doorway. Okay, so that's exactly what I'm doing here. Alright, and so as I put this together, I took my measurements, I cut this out on the table saw so that I knew that these measurements were going to be absolutely perfect, and I can double check my math a little bit more fine-tuned than I could on the panel saw. So please don't skip the dry fit up, okay? We've got 5 pieces right here that are fit perfectly, and so take your time to actually put this together like it's going to be on your project. At no point should we need a hammer. We just need a little bit of hand strength and maybe just a couple drops on the table to get this lined up. At no point are we taking a hammer to this thing. If we start to fray any of the edges of this panel, it's not going to want to go into this channel. So make sure it all fits. Make sure that the wood grain direction is parallel with the stile direction, and that all of the flames like this one are pointed up towards me. Okay, so there's my dry fit up. Okay, looks pretty good. Now check this out. I've got a little bit of a gap right here. Okay, a little bit is not the end of the world. I would say anything less than 1/4 of an inch we're not going to worry about, because we're actually going to, after we glue them, sand these edges right here. This is a student in another class of mine. It's a little gap right there. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. All right, a little bit offset, but that is easily accomplished by just sanding it on the belt sander. Okay. All right, after my dry fit, I've got all of my pieces here. I checked the clock, and I have at least 20 minutes in the hour to work on gluing up my door frame. I am not doing this 5 minutes before cleanup time. Okay? I'm only going to add a couple of dots of glue, like seriously, please, Mr. Cameraman, zoom in here. Just a couple baby dots of glue inside this channel to help lock in the panel so it's not rotating. In fact, I don't want to make a mistake and put this one in here. Get it out of the way. Now the tenons is the important part. Okay, the tenons, I'm actually going to hold that glue back, all right? The tenons are these pieces right here that's going to be unseen, hidden. That's the male component that's going to go into the channel of our stile, okay? I'm going to withhold glue from this corner right here, because if it squeezes out, it's going to be almost impossible to get out, okay? And just with the tip of my glue bottle, I'm going to put a very light amount of glue on that tenon, okay? I've held it back. See where my arrow is pointing? All right, that is where the glue is going to go. Okay, that's gonna be my base right there. All right, if you take note, my tenons are just a little bit bigger than the panel on these pieces. I'm talking about this right here, all right? Next, I'm gonna grab my stiles and I'm just gonna drop a couple of dots of glue in there to help lock in that panel. By no means am I going to fill this channel with glue so that it holds extra strong, okay? The joinery should do that. This is just a little insurance policy for us so that it's never gonna come apart. I like to do my second stile next, all right, and kind of build it from the base up. The guy who taught me how to do this is one of the biggest characters I've ever met in woodworking. I'm not going to talk about him. Actually, look at this. I almost forgot my my glue here. All right, it probably wouldn't have mattered, all right, because this is so tight in here. Okay, but I'm going to do it like the pros, right? There's my glue on that second tenon. Anyway, the guy's name was Jeff. He worked with me at Knapp Classic Cabinetry. I learned a ton from him and I'm very grateful. The woodworking stuff has followed me my whole career. The rest of it is kind of a fun little side conversations, shall we say. Okay? I did put arrows on this one here, okay, but I'm holding it back from this corner right here. I'm on the back side, or the clean edge is where I'm putting the majority of that glue. Additionally, when I'm gluing, for the camera here, I've got it right below so you guys know what I'm doing. You don't forget, you don't go to check your notification. But did you just see that drip that fell right there? You don't want this panel down like this, and now you've got that drip on your panel, okay? Go slow, take your time. Nothing more than this amount of persuasion, shall we say, is necessary. We're not going to get any hammers or knives or chisels or anything. All right, at this point, I'm pretty darn close. Okay, and I'm gonna double check some things before I get a clamp. My stiles are parallel to the wood grain on the panel. Okay, I'm pretty darn close to being flush, but I'm gonna grab a clamp. To help ensure that everything does get pulled in. Okay, and you don't need a ton of clamps. All right, and I'm just using the clamps as kind of my muscle to help bring the boards in. If you look, I've got a little tiny gap right here, right here, right here, that I'm gonna try and squeeze in with this clamp. There we go. Boy, that made it easy. No hammer necessary. I'm gonna come down and do the same over here. Honestly, I could probably be done with that clamp right there, but I'm gonna set this in here like this. I'm just gonna get it so that it's snug. That's it. I'm not gonna ream on this thing. Same thing here. I'm gonna come across, lay it down so it, for the most part, helps keep it square. All right. But hopefully that joinery, as long as there's no gaps here or here, and actually check this out right here. I've got this gap right here I want to get rid of. I'm going to use the clamp to help me out with that. There we go. See how that moved right there? That helps square up my board just by looking at these lines right here. Thank you, Jeff, from what used to be known as Knapp Classic Cabinetry. Okay? Not a whole lot of pressure. Okay? This is easy because on the other side I was able to tell what these pieces all were. You guys couldn't see that on camera. You can now, but as I was standing here, the operator, looking at it, I could see what I was working with. Okay, and so I'm reminded those grinder lines should be parallel with my door stiles. Okay, so that is how we make our 5-piece doors in here using the 3-headed shaper. All right, so after our door has dried overnight, what we're going to do is we're going to sand off these ugly ends right here. I got pretty darn close, all right, but I'm going to use this edge sander to sand the edge. A couple things on this sander right here. The rotation of the belt is going this way, so as soon as I push this wood into the belt, it's going to want to take it and throw it that way. All right? So I'm prepared for that. I'm probably going to brace myself like this, and just be aware it's going to be coming this way. On-off button is right here. Let's open up the blast gate so that we can get a little bit of dust out of our way. And we're just going until it is smooth. Okay? I'm just going to it is smooth. By no means are we going to take this to the jointer because we've got end grain on both of these, well, ends. Looks like this. That's all there is to it, folks. Here's the other end. Alright, so at this point our door is glued up. It's been sanded on the ends. This thing is starting to look like a door. We're going to use this fancy grass boring machine to drill 2 holes in our doors along the stile. You're going to pick one stile, and that is going to be where your door is going to open. You can have either a right-hand door swing or a left-hand door swing. Okay, that can be up to you. I recommend before you just cowboy this thing and go for it with your board, you find a piece of scrap that's 3/4 of an inch thick. That's the same thickness as the stile on your door here, and practice with that. I've already done that, so it's going to drill a hole very similar to what you see, exactly like what you see right here. Little anatomy on this machine. Underneath here, where I'm putting my hand, is where you're never going to put your hand, but that is the drill bit that's going to drill that hole and make all these shavings. I've got 2 pins right here that act as kind of a fence for me to hold my board tight up against, okay? Along the back edge right here on this 80/20 tubing is a gauge that goes out from 0 either direction, okay? And then I've got these clamps right here that, as I turn this key right here, if we watch the clamps, hold it down tight. Now this thing is not going to move. I can safely bore my hole. I'm still going to be holding this though while I'm boring this hole. Okay, but those clamps just provide some extra protection. We're holding it tight down to the table. We're not pushing against those pins. Some more just good to knows. It's got an emergency stop down here. It's also got a stop and start button. There's an additional start button right here. Okay, and it must be turned to the slot line. Okay, it should be turned to the right. Okay, I'm going to line it up, not on my rail, but on my stile. Okay, and the dimensions I want us to use are 9.5. Okay, 9.5. We're going to put this edge right here that I'm touching with my finger against the 9.5 along the scale. As I do that, you'll notice my edge is going to be touching both of those pins back behind there. So essentially I'm tied up against the fence. I clamp it down. I'm not clamping anything here, but I'm clamped down pretty good right here, 9.5. I'm going to bore my hole right here along this door. Let's see how it goes. Unclamp it, makes a big mess. Look at that right there, perfect, okay? I'm gonna make another hole right here as I line up at 9.5 along this gauge right here. Clamp it down, not going anywhere, holding it tight against those 2 pins, tight down to the table, and clamp down, bore that second hole. It makes a big mess, and right now I've got it positioned right by the door here. So after you bore those 2 holes, Sweep off of your project, and then please sweep up the table, all right? This is where those hinges are gonna go. And that's how we use our not so boring boring machine.